Okay, here we have a tabletop review of the Boker Plus by Vox Knives Gnome. As you can see, it's quite a small knife. I use it as a neck knife most of the time, but before we have a look at it, I'll just run by a couple of the specs here. It's 12C27 blade steel, so it's a very well-known knife steel. It's stood the test of time. A lot of European makers use this. It's got a 45mm blade, so it's comparatively small cutting edge too. Now the blade type, as you'll see when I pop it out the sheath, I can't really decide if it's Wharncliffe or sheep's foot because it has characteristics of both blade type, again down to the design of the knife and the blade itself. It's a hollow ground blade, 20mm depth from the edge of the secondary bevel to the top of the grind there, so it's great for slicing. I've tried it around the kitchen a few times and it absolutely destroys things like mushrooms. Not a problem. So even if you're just little slicing things like that, it's got the blade depth to take it through. Now if you have a look at the spine of the blade, you can see that it's quite thick down all the way. It's 3.5mm, and you're talking a few bushcraft knives are not really that thick. But as you can see, if I just pop this out, there you go, it just tapers off slightly towards the end there. If you look closer, you can see the Vox stamp there, and you can just about make out the detail of the hollow grind. This is the green micarta version of the Gnome. There are a couple of others out there. There's the stag antler version of the Gnome as well, and there's a limited edition, I believe, white micarta out there. Now the white micarta has blue felt liners rather than the red that this version has. Now as you can see, I've just popped it on a bit of leather here to take the focus away from my battle scarred cutting mat. You can see the stamps on the blade quite clearly there. It's got the blade steel quality and the designer's mark there, you can make out quite nicely. Just make out a slight belly on the blade there too. Again, it really lends itself towards cutting quality. Slicing makes short work of tomatoes, anything like that. It's great to have around the kitchen, if a bit small. Again, here we have the maker's mark, so it's a Boker Plus from Solingen, Germany, and I believe that's the serial number of the knife, but I'm not sure, so if anyone else out there knows a bit more, please pipe up and tell me. And obviously, made in China. Not necessarily a bad thing in this case, because the quality is absolutely peerless. Everything's flush and fits nicely. Now you will have noticed as well, I've got a little tritium key fob through the lanyard hole there, just for a bit more grip. As you can see, just as my finger tucks in, that's the only thing I'll say about it. The grip does work, but it is a little bit strange. It does lend itself to have something through this lanyard hole, so maybe a bit of paracord, but in my case I thought the tritium key fob just looked a bit better. Because of the blade thickness on the spine, it really gives a lot of blade control, especially for the fine tip. So for draw cuts, it really does make the difference. You can put a lot of pressure behind it there, and you can even choke up on the knife quite a bit. Fantastic. You'll notice there's no jimping on the back of the blade, but it doesn't really need it. This isn't the sort of knife you're going to be using for anything heavy duty enough that you'd have to have that reassuring grip there. Here we've just got another well-known knife, the Spyderco UK PK Lightweight, just for a bit of a size comparison. So if I just pop that open, you can see the whole knife itself is only about as long as the open blade. So if we just pop out a bit, you can see how small this knife really is in comparison to a full-size pocket knife. Now we've got the sheath. It's a Kydex moulded sheath. This is one of the second gen ones. The original Gnomes shipped with a much bigger, sloppier fit sheath, but I believe the Boker got themselves together and came up with a much nicer moulded construction that you've got here. Now obviously this isn't how it came from the factory. This is a Dave special creation. As everybody knows, if it's got holes in it, I'll have paracord through it somewhere. So there's the whistle breakaway at the top and the small compass. Obviously can't use the compass while the knife's in there, but as you can see, the contour on there is perfect. It just fits in and it retains the knife fantastically. There's no bounce, there's no play, you can rattle it around, not a problem. I mean, I've been wearing this under my jacket for a good 3 weeks now. Never had a problem with it popping out. My overall impressions of this knife is it's a small but friendly looking knife. It doesn't look aggressive at all. You can get some knives out there, even the Spyderco UK PK you just saw does look quite aggressive. You can see the ones that are semi-serrated and all the rest, but I mean, if you look at it, it's not going to be doing any stabbing, slasher flicks or anything like that. It's a small, well thought of knife. It's, like I say, it looks friendly. I don't mind carrying it. The only problem we have with it though is it's a fixed blade in the eyes of the law, which over here in the UK means if it's a fixed blade you must have a good reason for carrying it in a public place. So, you know, things like if you were going fishing for instance, yeah, you'd be fine with this. Again, it lends itself to being a bit more friendly in appearance rather than the stylized combat type knives. So my final impressions of this knife is it's a great little all-round utility knife. It's not for your heavy tasks, and it's not what some people have made out to be a crazy survival knife. Availability, you can get it from a few places in the UK. You can get this version from the bushcraftstore.co.uk, where I got mine. Great guys there, great service, for about £30. So this is the end of my review now. Well, thanks very much for watching, and please leave your comments at the end as well. Any suggestions of stuff you'd like to see us blow up in future or review, always good. Thanks very much, gents. Bye bye.